The gridiron has always been a battleground. Since the NFL's inception, competition's been fierce, fueled by passion and doused with a heavy dose of bad blood. When emotions run high, things can get downright personal. So with the offseason rolling along, we decided to make today's video about the most intense rivalries in NFL history. Let's dive right in. For our first heated rivalry, we're going to rewind to the 1970s, an era of football that was dominated by two AFC powerhouses, the Steelers and the Raiders. It all started with the Immaculate Reception of 1972, a deflected pass by Terry Bradshaw that was snagged by Franco Harris and ran all the way to the end zone for the most unlikely game-winning score in NFL history. After that, the two teams went on to clash in 5 consecutive playoffs, a record that still stands. For nearly a decade, it seemed like whoever emerged from this AFC slugfest would walk away with the Super Bowl trophy. The Steelers dominated with championships in 74, 75, 78, and 79, while the Raiders countered with titles of their own in 76, 80, and 83. While much has changed since then, one thing that hasn't is that the Steelers continue to breed some of the most ferocious players in the game. However, since in recent decades, they've directed that hate towards a new foe within their division, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens may be a young franchise compared to some, joining the league in 1996, but they wasted no time in establishing themselves as a force to be reckoned with. Since then, both teams have built their legacies on the backs of some of the best defenses in NFL history. The Ravens, at their peak, were led by Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Terrell Suggs, and were arguably the best defensive unit ever assembled. But the Steelers were jam-packed with some of the toughest stars in the league too, such as Troy Polamalu, James Harrison, and Casey Hampton. So it's not surprising that when the two teams went head-to-head, it was a guaranteed bloodbath. The 2008 AFC Championship game was likely the pinnacle of the team's rivalry. Ryan Clark's brutal hit left Ravens running back Willis McGahee unconscious, while Troy Polamalu sealed the deal with a pick-6 in the fourth quarter. The Steelers emerged victorious and finished the season by adding a Super Bowl title to their collection. Even though both teams have 2 Super Bowls apiece since the turn of the millennium, the Steelers hold a better regular season and playoff record and also boast a 12-7 edge in division titles. While the AFC North boasts a fierce modern rivalry, let's not forget the battles that have defined the league's past. We now turn our attention to the NFC East, a division where things can get downright fiery. In 1958, Texas oil man Clint Murchison Jr. set his sights on bringing an NFL team to Dallas. One avenue he explored was purchasing the Redskins, now known as the Commanders, from owner George Preston Marshall. Negotiations seemed promising, but Marshall backed out at the last minute, leaving Murchison rightfully pissed off. In order to get revenge, Murchison bought the rights to the Redskins' iconic fight song, Hail to the Redskins. This was a move meant to strong-arm Marshall, but it backfired, because 2 years later, Murchison attempted to bring the Cowboys to the NFL via expansion. He just needed the approval of the other owners in the league. But guess who wouldn't approve? You guessed it, Redskins owner George Marshall. So Murchison made a peace offering by giving back rights to the Redskins song, and in return, Marshall gave approval for the Cowboys to join the league via expansion draft. Following those theatrics, it's no surprise that the two teams have had a bitter rivalry right from the get-go. Though young NFL fans might not realize it, both teams have enjoyed periods of success, with the Cowboys boasting 5 Super Bowls and the Commanders claiming 3. However, neither team has hoisted the Lombardi Trophy in nearly 30 years. So as far as recent history cares, both are loser franchises. Now, the Cowboys have grown into the richest franchise in the NFL, so it's not surprising that their opponents have a little extra disdain for them. But no one hates the Cowboys quite as much as the Eagles. In recent years, this rivalry's become particularly heated since the two teams fight for supremacy atop the NFC East. But the real venom dates back to the late 80s and 90s. In 1989, things got extra nasty. Cowboys coach Jimmy Johnson accused the Eagles of offering bounties to injure Dallas star quarterback Troy Aikman. Eagles fans, notorious for their passionate and sometimes questionable displays of support, responded by raining objects down on the field aiming to injure the Cowboys players. But things only got more distasteful from there. Eagles fans reached a new low in 1999 when a devastating hit left Cowboy star receiver Michael Irvin with a career-ending spinal cord injury. But even with Irvin's health in serious jeopardy, the Eagles couldn't put aside their hate. Instead, they cheered as Irvin had to get carted off the field. which only further intensified the rivalry between the two fan bases. While the Eagles may have found more recent success with Super Bowl appearances, the Cowboys still hold the edge in head-to-head matchups, both in the regular season and the playoffs. Even though no fan base is quite as ruthless as Philadelphia, let's shift gears and turn back the clock to explore a clash of cultures and coaching philosophies that cultivated the most bitter rivalry in the league during the 1980s. During that era, the New York Giants were led by legendary linebacker Lawrence Taylor and coached by the tough-nosed Bill Parcells. Their strategy was to win by physically overpowering their opponents week in and week out. The Giants' defense was famously nicknamed the Big Blue Wrecking Crew. Meanwhile, across the country, the San Francisco 49ers took a different approach under coach Bill Walsh. Their offense, led by the poised Joe Montana, revolved around a skilled and tactical spread-out passing attack. It was a West Coast offense in its purest form, a total contrast to the Giants' brutally physical style. In 1981, the 49ers beat the Giants in the playoffs, marking the beginning of a heated chapter. The Giants got their revenge in 1985, even though the 49ers might have tampered with their headsets. Well, that's what Bill Parcells thought, at least. The 49ers always scripted their entire first drive on offense, and coincidentally, their headsets went kaput on that drive, forcing the Giants to disengage theirs as well by NFL rules. Still, the Giants came out victorious and continued to torment the 49ers. The following year, the Giants crushed San Francisco 49-3 in the playoffs. But back came San Francisco in the late 80s when Montana led the 49ers to consecutive Super Bowl wins. But it wasn't until the 1990 NFC Championship game when the hate between the two franchises finally climaxed. A dirty hit knocked Montana out of the game, and a critical fumble recovered by Lawrence Taylor sealed the Giants' victory. The win propelled the Giants to a Super Bowl title and basically finished Montana's illustrious career as a 49er starter. But before we finish up, we have to talk about one more NFL rivalry, because this last one dates back the furthest and could very well be the most iconic rivalry that exists in the league. We're talking about the rivalry between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. Chicago's about a 30-minute drive from Wisconsin, so plenty of fans of both franchises regularly make the trip down to the other team's house when the Packers and Bears match up. Soldier Field and Lambeau Stadium are two of the most historical and hostile environments the game has to offer. Maybe the freezing temperatures force fans to drink more beer to stay warmer. But what we do know is that these two teams have been competing against each other since 1921. Between them, they won 19 NFL championships during the pre-Super Bowl era. Since then, the Bears have only won one Super Bowl in 1986, led by Mike Ditka's hard-nosed defense. However, once Brett Favre took over in Green Bay, the Packers took over the rivalry and haven't looked back since. Could Caleb Williams lead the Bears back to the top of the division? Only time will tell. But we want to know what you guys think. What's your favorite NFL rivalry? Let us know in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more sports news and insights. Thanks again, and see you next time.